Hey everyone, welcome to Nerding.io. I'm JD, and today we're going to be talking about tokens, specifically how they're used in AI and how we can work with them inside of JavaScript. So let's go ahead and get started. So one of the first things that we learn when we're thinking about tokens is limitations. And you can recognize that by the fact that all of the different models have token limitations. And when you first start looking at it, you might think, well, maybe this is just the number of characters. Or you could think of it as a regex and it being split on on spaces, or even on punctuation, sometimes even on line breaks. And while all of these are true, you can actually split uh, this text into different types of tokens that way. It's actually using a very particular kind of algorithm. So we're going to go through some of that to actually understand it a little bit more. On the OpenAI website, though, it actually tells you the max tokens, but then it'll actually tell you which tokenizer it's using. So if we look at the OpenAI platform, it has this visualization, and this allows us to actually look at how tokens are created. And tokens are just pieces of text that are broken down. You can think of them as small pieces. So we were talking about how, this could be by characters. So if we just do I, we're starting to see stuff, but then we see love, code. You notice that not only are the tokens actually being included with the spaces, but it actually has parts for the punctuation too. You can see double spaces will create a token. You can see that different punctuation creates tokens. However, like line items don't. Even though you have multiple characters, you don't actually have the same amount of tokens. They do give you a rule of thumb that about four characters of text is roughly one or token. So 100 tokens could be about 75 words. So we know that we can actually break down these tokens in JavaScript, and that's because we have this tick token package that OpenAI is using. So they have one specifically for Python and also for JavaScript. However, there's another community package that we're going to take a look at. One other thing I kind of wanted to show is that the more tokens that you have doesn't mean all the characters. So if we actually look at HTML, and I know a lot of people are using OpenAI for code generation, you're actually noticing that these tokens are split up in a very unique way. You can even see tabs and spaces. We can have that debate later on, but that all of these are different tokens. And so HTML or any kind of code is actually going to generate a ton of tokens. And so there's actually a good reason for this. And if we go to Hugging Face, they have a really good example of why this is happening. And they're just still using words, but if you look at it, they break things down for you have words like annoying or annoyingly, and the word annoying also has ly. So if we look at this BERT tokenizer, it actually states that I have a new are all words that it understands. However, GPU is a subword, and it's saying GP is going to be a subword and U is going to be a subword. And then pound pound is actually going to be how you would reattach these words, these subwords, into a token reversal. So if we were decoding these tokens. So these tokens are going to be essentially like associations, and that's how it's actually going out and doing some of the searching and putting together its responses. All right, so now let's actually take a look at our JavaScript package. I hope you're enjoying this video on tokens and how they're being used in AI, specifically how we can work with them in JavaScript. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. I would greatly appreciate it. All right, let's get back to nerding. So the package that we're going to look at is GPT Tokenizer. And what's really cool about this is it has the token byte pair encoder and decoder for all the OpenAI models. So it's like very similar to TikToken, but they like to say right here that it has additional features sprinkled on top. So you can see the different types of encodings, which are the RV50K base, P50K base, and so on. The most common one for GPT-3 and GPT-4 is the CL100K base. So what we're going to be looking at are a couple of the different features that it has. So just like on OpenAI, it has the decoder and encoder functions. It also has an async generator, which is really nice. And then this, which is the within token limit. This is great because it gives you two different things. It can either give you the number of tokens, or it can tell you that you're exceeding the amount of tokens that you might have put a limit on. So it's just running an npm install in order to get it started. But the other really cool thing is it actually has a playground. So it's just a really easy URL, and it gives you a whole bunch of other information. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that. So if we do a hello world, you can see that the tokenizer is the CL100K, and that's doing the GPT 3.5 and GPT-4. It'll actually visualize the tokens. You can actually see the token IDs. Then it will tell you the characters and tokens, very similar to the OpenAI tokenizer we saw earlier, but it also give you the dollar amounts. This is super helpful when kind of doing some estimates. So now that we have like a pretty good understanding, we have a visual of how we can actually use this, now we're going to actually dive into our code. So in order to use this in JavaScript, we have to do our import. You can see here what I'm doing is I'm actually importing this into NextJS in a route. We're just going to be using static text. There's really no visuals for this. And I'm just going to show you kind of behind the scenes what it's doing. So this example, you can get either from our link in the description, or this is actually the same code from the npm example of GPT Tokenizer. So right here you have your text, and it's giving you a token limit of 10. If we look at our example previously, that's 13 characters, but only 4 tokens, so we're not going to exceed our limit. It will go ahead and decode or encode our text here, and then we can actually decode the text and get the information back. Both super important. The next thing is one of the biggest functions, I think, that's really cool, and that's the within token limit. So as we were talking about before, basically you can set your token limit, which we did, which is 10, put in the text, and it'll actually give you the token limit back. So it'll either tell you what the tokens are, or if it's exceeded, it'll return false. That allows you to do some conditional logic. So let's say that you were ingesting a ton of data, maybe over 30, let's just say over 8,000 tokens. We know of text that we're going to be pulling in. Well, that would be too big for GPT 3.5. We'd have to go to the 16 limit or even higher. This is a way to kind of predefine what that model could be just by doing that. Now, this isn't full safe because the token limit for GPT 3.5 and 4 is based on all the tokens. So not just the tokens you're taking in, but the tokens that you're outputting as well. So you just keep that in mind. But it's still a great function. Again, you can put in conditional logic. But this is just flat text, as we can see up here. So the next call or function that we're going to be going through is you can actually take the entire chat log that you have and actually put that in to see what your tokenizer would come back as. So right here we have an example. We're doing a system and the assistant. You could also see this as a role for the user. Then you can take all the content that it expects from this chat as an array and actually encode the chat tokens. Again, super helpful. And you can actually put that array into the token limit without changing the function or anything else. It can look for an array or text. Both really cool. Again, it gives you the token limit, or you can look back, or it returns false. The next thing it does is it actually takes the encode of the text and it'll chunk this information based on the generator of this text. So then the next two things you can do is you can actually decode as or using a generator from those chunks. And then you can also do an await. So you can actually do an async function or an async tokens, assuming that they're iterable and an iterator number, and then do a decode async generator. So this is how we would actually implement the tokenizer in JavaScript. All right, so the last thing I wanted to show you was you can actually use this on the front end too. So this exact same tokenizer that we were looking at for a visual earlier, you can actually go and do a code sandbox and actually load all of this actually directly into React. So as you can see, the tokenizer part is a bit down here. You've got the types for encoding. You can actually use select which state, which tokenizer you're going to use, and then actually put it through the encode on the front end. So none of this is hitting the back end. The example we showed is just if you wanted to use it behind the scenes on a like an API request, but this is how you would actually decode your tokens. Same functions, right? We're still using the decode generator and encode, but it's on the front end. So just really cool that you can see it on both the front end and back end. And with that, all right, so what we learned today was tokens and specifically how they're used in AI. So different ways to break them down, also how you can encode and decode them in JavaScript, some of the limitations that you might run into and how to actually get around those with chunking, and then also looking at examples, for real world things like chatbots. So don't forget to like and subscribe and leave us any comments of things you want to learn in the future. Happy nerding.